We beat him. Hello one and all, and welcome to a very special Halloween edition of the WrestleTalk Recap. I am Tempest from WrestleTalk.com, here to take you through this week's news and notes in the world of professional wrestling. Man, did I pick the wrong week to have a headache while recording this. The match of the week this week goes to an NXT UK match. That is Walter versus Ilia Draganov. This match got 5 stars from Dave Meltzer and was described as perhaps the most brutal match in WWE history. If you're a fan of finesse in wrestling, this match is not for you. This was a fight in every sense of the word. Make sure you go and check it out. It's one of the year's best matches. The show of the week is NXT. The Halloween Havoc edition of NXT was absolutely spectacular. It's one of the best episodes of the show from the whole year. On the show, we had Johnny Gargano recapturing the NXT North American Championship from Damian Priest. Also, we had a tables, ladders, and scares match between Io Shirai and Candice LeRae for the NXT Women's Championship. But perhaps the biggest news coming out of the show was the return of the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne. Dunne, of course, rejoined the NXT brand, joining forces with Pat McAfee's new stable, turning heel on Kyle O'Reilly. Moving over to the news this week, we had WWE officially putting a ban on Twitch. Stars such as AJ Styles, Zelina Vega, Aleister Black, and Mia Yim were forced to shut down their streams, while Paige broke down in tears on stream, saying she just couldn't deal with WWE anymore. I absolutely cannot read my notes in this thing, by the way. There was also an outbreak of COVID-19 at the WWE Performance Center caused by an in-house event to monitor progress on NXT trainees. The outbreak caused changes to NXT Halloween Havoc, as someone who was supposed to appear on screen was forced to quarantine for 2 weeks. And in other news, on Impact this week, Johnny Bravo was gunned down in the middle of his wedding, starting a brand new whodunit storyline. Moving back over to this week's shows, first up we have Impact Bound for Glory. We had a series of title changes on this show as the North recaptured the Impact World Tag Team Championships, Su Yung captured the Impact Knockouts Championship, and Rich Swann captured the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. The next night, we had WWE Hell in a Cell. This pay-per-view was very hot and cold, as the 3 Hell in a Cell matches all hit their mark, while everything else on this show was an absolute disaster. That being said, the first Hell in a Cell match was between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso for the WWE Universal Championship held under I Quit rules. This match was purely based on storytelling, as Roman Reigns was fighting the inner conflict he felt while fighting his family, as Jey Uso refused to quit. Meanwhile on the show, you had Sasha Banks and Bayley finally going one-on-one inside Hell in a Cell with some very creative spots. This match resulted in Sasha Banks finally being able to make Bayley submit to the bank statement, capturing the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship for the very first time. Then in the main event, you had Drew McIntyre taking a tumble from about halfway up the Hell in a Cell through the announce table below, allowing Randy Orton to capture the WWE Championship, marking his 14th reign as World Champion. The very next night we had Monday Night Raw, as Randy Orton and The Fiend now appear to be on a collision course, and I, for one, am not interested in seeing it. Also on the show, you had a number of Survivor Series qualifying matches, as Keith Lee, AJ Styles, and Sheamus all qualified to represent Raw. On Wednesday, we had NXT Halloween Havoc, which we've already talked about, so flipping channels, we have AEW Dynamite. This was another good show, as AEW featured a pair of championship matches, with Cody defending the TNT Championship against Orange Cassidy successfully in a lumberjack match, and Serena Deeb making her first defense of her newly won NWA World Women's Championship. Also on the show, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega both advanced to the finals of the AEW Eliminator Tournament, and they will now face each other one-on-one at Full Gear.
Just like everything in this storyline so far, this was masterfully told, with Reigns watching on from outside as Jey misplaced his anger more and more from Roman to himself to Daniel Bryan, superbly completing his transition from reluctant babyface to psychotic tribal chief henchman by the end of the match.
Then on Thursday, we have NXT UK, which featured the match of the week itself, Walter versus Ilia Draganov. I know we already talked about it, but I feel like I need to reiterate just how good this match was. It was really good. And now a word from our New Japan correspondent.
Okay, Chelsea, what did you think of the G1 climax this week? Wow. Thank you, Chelsea.
Heading on over to WrestleTalk.com, you can check out all of the latest features from this week in pro wrestling, including the list of 10 possible Wrestle Kingdom 15 matches that you might see next year, written by our own Sauna Lad. What in God's name is this? Back over on YouTube, you have Adam Blampier's list of the 10 times WWE stars seduced your dad. Who let this man run the channel?
See, it's been a rough decade for your dad. The plant closed down, they stopped making that pie he likes. As he's gotten up in the years, his increased awareness of his own mortality is coupled with a vague nagging disappointment in himself fueled by aspirational social media to form a presence of anxiety that's much a part of him as his own shadow. But thankfully, over the years, your dad has been able to find pockets of solace in his cruel world, and often it came in the form of famous WWE wrestlers railing him silly.
In all seriousness, there is a great amount of heart and emotion put into this list, and I for one cannot possibly recommend it enough. It was a big week for Parts Fun Known as well, as you had Quizzlemania 21. Quizzlemania goes Hollywood.
In second place with 96, it's Nugget.
Respectable score.
Very respectable score. And the Oscar goes to your new Quizzlemania champion, your four-time Quizzlemania champion, Sean Rossap.
Also on Parts Fun Known this week, we have Adam Blampier's latest booking video explaining how he would book The Fiend. And finally, we have the latest edition of Fast Feuds, recapping the Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart storyline. Right here on Wrestle2, we have the latest edition of ScreenGrapple with housemate Simon, as well as a week's worth of Wrestling Daily with Alex McCarthy.
And now for something completely different.
If you're interested in seeing a fascinating story of how Monopoly helped World War II soldiers escape prison, you need to go over to Phenomen Nerds, where Adam Blampier breaks down this incredible story. Coming up this week on our various YouTube channels, we have coverage of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Power Struggle event. That's right, myself and Randy Andy Datsun will be back with more New Japan coverage for all of you hardcore wrestling fans. Additionally, we will be doing our coverage of AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view, their final pay-per-view of 2020. And that just about wraps it up from me. Make sure you give this video a like, share, and subscribe to stay notified, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Our Instagram is @WrestleTalk.official, our Twitter is @WrestleTalk_TV. You can follow me on Twitter @TempestWT, and I have been Tempest from WrestleTalk.com, aka the Blue Ranger. Make sure you have yourselves a fun and safe Halloween.